It is about creating an environment where differences are welcomed and that we're not going to get locked in a debate. We're just going
Yeah.
to listen and let the group hash out and think through what the possibilities could be. And that's what creates, a high performing environment. It's one where it's not about one person winning or losing. It's about the best idea emerging.
Love it.
And that's what creates the performance aspect of it.
Hey, welcome back, everyone, to the Lead Well, Live Well podcast. I've got a great guest today, someone who I trained with in Japan. We met in Japan training for YPO certification so that we can train YPO leaders. Stephanie Bown. She's an amazing person. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. She's a real expert in leadership and strategy, and particularly around collaboration. And I think she's just got some wonderful things to share with us today. So super looking forward to that. She's also an accomplished author and has a master's in organizational dynamics and pretty much every psychologically based degree you could possibly imagine. Steph, great to see you.
Oh, Mark, it's a delight and a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, you're most welcome. We're looking forward to having this conversation. Tell us about your new book coming up, The Bonds That Tie. What's that all about?
Yeah, well, actually, that title was a placeholder for what is the new book coming up. So it's called Curious, Connected and Calm, How Leaders Are Better Together. And it's my second book. My first book was Purpose, Passion and Performance. So if my first book was about high performance organizations, this one is about high performing teams, essentially.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's how we can actually get more out of working together in teams. Teamwork is essential to success, of course, even more so these days. So yeah, that's the new book, available 1st of March. So I'm
Awesome.
very excited.
Excellent. Actually, come out about the same time as this, so
Yeah.
timing might be good. You talk a lot about leadership synergy and collective capacity. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so look, I think from what I've observed, this second book really came about because I'd written the first book to be able to give a guide to leadership teams in particular about how to set up your organization for success. So what are the kind of the integrating systems that need to happen for people to connect and align their work styles? And these are the systems for culture and leadership and strategy. So what are we doing? How are we working together? And who's leading all of that? How are leaders connecting all the dots there? What I noticed over the last 3 years of having post-release that book and working more and more with leadership teams is just that how that team works together really determines the success of any strategy or any culture plan they want to put in place. It all comes down to synergy. So synergy, the definition of synergy is that together we're better. So we come up with a better result together than any one of us could do alone. And that is actually a testable, quantifiable thing. And so leadership teams in particular are really interesting because they are often running their own departments. Leaders of leadership teams are running their own departments. They are pretty much more often, they're not just working in silos. They don't see themselves as a team, coming up with shared ownership for things. And so while they're called a team, they don't typically behave like a team. And in fact, there's a lot of lost capacity because of that. Really what we want to do in a team is leverage that shared capacity, get those people working together. We want sales and marketing to work together. We want operations and marketing and sales all to, singing to the same tune. So when we're realizing synergy, we're actually coming up with a better solution together. And that means bringing all of those minds together and activating that talent, that latent potential that exists within the team. That's where we innovate.
Love it.
And that's, that really comes down to creating that positive dynamic. So
yeah,
that's, we go on, we rabbit on about hiring great talent, but are we really using the talent we have?
Exactly. I mean, you're talking my language, Steph. Like that, I have a lot of leaders who they're pretty good at the one-on-one, and they sort of help people on priorities. They've got a reasonable structure around where they're going, what they're trying to achieve. Yeah. But quite rarely do they manage to get their team together and get those team dynamics right. And I think there's something definitely important about everyone understanding what everyone else is doing, because it all impacts. Nothing's in a silo. Can you give us a couple of tools and tips on how a leader can move from just doing that one-on-one into much more of a team dynamic and working with a team more broadly?
Yeah, look, the basic answer to that is that there's essentially three things you can do. One is get real, the second is get closer, and then the third is get better. And to get real, it is about having real, honest conversations. So really understanding what's working and not working in the dynamic of the team, feeling like it's safe to give each other feedback, to explore the reasons why you're all working, what's behind your agenda and your program that you bring to the team. So learn how to be more honest and transparent, and learn how to be safe and calm and comfortable giving each other feedback and listening to each other's feedback. I think that's the first step. I think the second one is get close, like really understand each other's values and principles and strengths. So learn more about each other, because by understanding what you all have to offer, you'll know how to leverage that collective capacity. And if you can align on a shared purpose, then you're going to be motivated to work together. And that's really about getting better. Align on a purpose. Understand what your reason for being a team is. What's the reason you need to come together? And agree on some principles for how you're going to work together moving forward. They're not things that take a lot of time, but often we just assume everybody understands why they're in the room and what each of your roles are and what you each have to offer. We make these assumptions, and most of the time we're missing a whole lot of potential that we could be learning from each other. So just taking a little bit of effort, or putting some effort into those habits and practices, especially if you're a team leader or leading a team, will help you get at that possibility for synergy. And that's where the sparks, the creative potential lies. It's like a really interesting opportunities start to come forth from those. We start to realize there's different ways we can solve problems. There's new solutions to things that we didn't think we had a solution to, and that's exciting.
It is
That's what
exciting.
people come to work for. So
Yeah, totally. It's just a whole different environment, isn't it? I mean, you're sort of crossing over to a whole bunch of things there. The underpinning of a common set of values, trying to create a culture that honors and respects the individual and willing to test the status quo. That's quite challenging for, I think, a lot of leaders who, particularly ones who've started their own business, that are pretty forthright, sort of powerful individuals, but opening up and being willing to be vulnerable and handing a level of control over to a larger group of people. How do you see people? Do you see people do that, or is it something that's just very hard to activate?
I see the best business leaders do that instinctively. So some of the best business leaders I've met, they have already assigned to that concept of the 80-20 rule. Like, nobody's ever going to do it better than me, but I'm willing to accept 80% is good enough. Good enough is good enough. I'm willing to accept that for me to be free, I need to allow and delegate to others. So Nick Bell is a serial entrepreneur. He's one of the Shark on Shark Tanks. He has founded, I think, something up to 12 to 15 businesses. He's got a quote on my book. He's given me a quote on my book. He's read my book and given me some really great feedback on it. He is all about empowerment and delegation and activating the talent and the potential of the people he has. But unfortunately, not everybody understands that from the start. They think that in order for the business to succeed, they need to be there to guide every decision. The leaders, they step up, the CEO, they assign roles, they've got their people in their seats, and they just want to direct all of the activities. And that's when they get locked and stuck in that position. So the sooner we can step back and allow the team to own it, the faster the problems start to get solved, the more accountability flies, the more creativity flies, the more the CEOs, the owners, or whoever the leader of the team is can step back and start to think more strategically and activate market potential rather than thinking about the team potential. So it's a really fundamental idea, and some really successful, those business leaders that have houses in Byron and they just go on holidays and they run their businesses from, that's how they do it, right? So
Absolutely.
Let's learn from those guys and gals who got it from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've made a career out of surrounding myself with amazing people and trying not to get in their way too much.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Yeah, well, that's
it's a
smart.
key. It's a
Yeah,
key. It works surprisingly well. Yet it seems to be, as we've kind of made this evolution
yeah.
from the industrial revolution into a digital environment and the marketplace moving so quickly. There's just still so many people trying to do it in a command and control way, and you just can't move fast enough to be able to do
It's
that.
too slow, And I used to work with one of my clients was Shannon Bennett for a while there. He was the executive chef of VU Group, the founder of VU Group, and lots of great establishments in Melbourne. He's moved on since then, but he had a philosophy that I want to be the dumbest person in the room. And I thought that's great, especially for an executive chef.
Yeah,
They typically can have some pretty big egos, right? But
for sure.
he was willing to be the dumbest person in the room because he understood that I'm hiring these great people, these minds, and I need them to tell me how to do things, and I need to trust them to come up with the great ideas. And as soon as you empower the team to own that solution, or the collective that you've hired to rise to the challenge, they will. They absolutely will. But
Yeah.
yeah, that command and control style doesn't work, especially in the digital age. Where the machines are thinking faster than we can. We
Oof.
really need to tap into that and
Yeah.
allow that creativity to happen.
Totally. Particularly with AI and everything that's happening in that space. It's just every business model is challenged, and it's a real time of change. Great to leverage the collective intelligence in the room. I love that. You mentioned clarity of vision, which I think we all understand. We need to know where we're going, why we're here, and what we're trying to achieve. Can you talk a little bit about values? I know you do some exercise around values. Do you think it's underrated?
Yeah, well, I think it's an overutilized idea. I think a lot of organizations do a great job of finding them, listing them on the website, and thinking job done on that. Purpose and values are absolutely fundamental to any culture and any team within the culture as well. So, that idea of having a clear organizational purpose is really important. But if we're bringing it down to team level and leadership level, it's also understanding, why do we exist as a team? What's our purpose in the service of the organization purpose? So, how do we serve the entity that serves the customers, and why does any of that matter? But values are about how we want to work together to do that. And more and more, I mean, any organizational culture that is worth joining is one that actively works towards meeting its espoused values, where that gap between espoused and lived values is closing, or they're at least trying
Totally.
to close it, right? So
Yep.
if we say we value honesty and integrity and trust, well, then as a leadership team or as a leader, how are you sharing results? How are you making yourself vulnerable? How are you following through on things that you've committed to? How are you asking for feedback and accepting that feedback in the spirit in which it's intended? How are you giving the feedback people need to be successful? All of that behavioral stuff is how we live those values. And unless we're talking about what's important to us and how do we want to work together, then we're going to keep living in the world of assumptions, right? And it's even more important for um, in not disconnected, but teams that are working, across different locations now, different time zones. We're in this sort of fluid economy. We need to agree on our principles for working together. These are the how to's, how we're going to work together so that we can trust one another to get the stuff done that we agree to get done to the standard and the quality that we expect from one another. How are we going to make sure we all feel like we are part of that team, that it's a great place to be, we feel appreciated. Everything. We talk a little bit about values in organizations, but where we live our day-to-day experiences at work is in teams. It's in how we interact with others at work.
Yeah.
So as
So
a
true.
team, we need to define what that looks like for us. We might have an organizational value of trust, but for a distributed team, it might be we all turn up at the 7 a.m. meeting that's in Australia, that's at 3 p.m. in the US, and it's at 9 p.m. in France. We're there for that meeting each week. That's the only time we actually get to creatively address some of the issues we're dealing with, the rest of the time we trust you to do what you want to do.
Yeah,
But our version of trust is come to that meeting on a Tuesday morning. Yeah. So
love it.
it's how we do it, that it's defining how we live the values that really matters.
Yeah, I think trust is it's a very underrated currency, and people usually come to that. I think when they're resisting the sort of command and control. Do I really trust these people, etc. Well, maybe get ones that you do trust and change your behavior a bit, and you might get a better outcome. Such an underrated construct. You talk about connect, align, and inspire as far as a sort of the three ways to connect as a leader or to be successful as a leader. Take us through that.
Yeah, great question. Look, I actually think that this is the role of leadership. I know there's as many definitions of leadership as there are people on the planet, and I do respect that. I guess my definition of leadership is your job as a leader is to connect, align, and inspire, and it's to create these connections based on bonds of trust and respect. Fundamentally, all relationships, any relationship, it can't flourish without those two fundamentals of trust and respect. And you can throw in all the other values you need on top of that, but it is to form these bonds, these connections that allow people to be honest and open and transparent and real and creative and all the things we need people to be at workplaces nowadays, because it's those skills that are going to be required in the future, because all of the admin load is taken up by machines and computers. So what humans can do is creatively problem solve the issues that we're faced with, utilizing AI as a supplementary tool. So leaders need to create the foundations for those connections to happen. They need to align. So they need to be clear on the why and the what we're working on. So that's really about creating a clear strategy and communicating those goals and actions and measurables in a consistent manner, and staying accountable to those things by reporting back and asking for input from teams on where they're at. And then the inspire bit is really important. And how leaders inspire others is by showing that their people and their teams that they actually care about their development. So they set goals for them aligned with the strategy, of course, and they ask their people to set goals, but they coach and develop and give feedback so that those people can grow into and meet the expectations we're asking them to meet. It's not a set and forget. It's not a like, here's your goal, off you go, good luck. It's a, let's set a goal, and what do you need to achieve that? What can I do to help you, whether it's coaching from me or I broker the coaching you need from someone else or somewhere else. But my job is to make sure you grow. And so if you're covering off all of those bases, you're creating strong cultures of connection by living values, you're being really clear on your expectations, and you're aligning activities, and you're investing in the development of people, you can't fail. You will absolutely succeed, because you have a team around you who will work through whatever comes up that gets in the way of the success of that organization. And that's all business is, all day, every day, solving problems. That is all it is.
That's it.
So, yeah,
Simple as
that's
that.
the job of leadership.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love it. Daniel Pink describes it in a not dissimilar way, I think, with a create a sense of purpose, give people some empowerment,
Yeah.
and help them gain mastery, like grow them, develop them, help them be the best they can be. I love
Yeah.
that. I think you're right. I think I'm right. I think everyone else is wrong. That's fine.
Yeah.
We agree on that. This is the way to do leadership,
Saying one
people. That's
thing,
all you have to do.
living it's another thing completely and entirely. And I don't discount the challenge associated with leading.
Totally.
It is
Under
it is the
pressure, under
hardest
pressure,
job.
it's so hard because it's slightly counterintuitive, isn't it? Like you have to,
Yeah.
coach, be a catalyst, be a facilitator, encourager,
Yes.
and create an environment where people can do well. But
Yeah.
sometimes you just want to cut to the quick answer, and it's not necessarily the best way to do it. And the irony, I think, is if you take the time to do it this way, you get a result quicker. Like you actually get to where you need to get to more promptly.
Yeah, look, I think leadership is second only to parenting. Like, they are very close cousins, and they are the
Yeah,
toughest jobs on the planet, 100%. So don't take it on lightly. You want to run a business, you want to be an entrepreneur, go for your life. And if you get to that point and you realize, oh, this leadership gig is pretty hard, either skill up or get in a CEO, do something.
Do something. Do
It was
something.
tough, yeah.
For sure. I remember doing a turnaround, doing my MBA and restoring a house, and I was fine. And then 5 minutes with a 2-year-old, and I'm just brr. So parenting certainly has its challenges. That's probably actually quite a nice segue, Steph. We with Lead Well, Live Well, we try and look at not only how to lead well, but also how do you manage. Life's complex. The whole misnomer of balance, you can't get balance. Like it's almost, how do you blend in a way that kind of makes sense for you? You're busy, you've got a wonderful family, and you're in demand. I mean, you do international things, you're just doing just a rock star in what you're doing. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, look, that ever elusive term of balance, it's a good one, isn't it? I've kind of given in to the idea of balance. It's not living in balance for me, it's on balance. So if you think about a statistical curve, it's the average between many data points, and there's highs and there's lows, right?
Absolutely.
All we want is for there to be more highs than lows, obviously, but it's on balance. So I'm still chasing it myself, but I think I definitely live according to a life by design philosophy. And I made this decision, my partner and I made this decision a good sort of 10 years ago now. So we have 2 boys. They are now 12 and 14, and we left Melbourne when they were 3 and 5 and moved to Byron Bay. So whilst I give it to the guys and girls running businesses from Byron, I happen to also be one of them.
It's a great spot.
So we moved to Byron Bay. So we made a definitive decision to change our lives completely, and that's when I started my own practice. And so I've grown my practice sort of steadily over 10 years, but there's a couple of fundamentals that I do now that I think help me maintain an on-balance perspective, I guess. So because I run my own business, I can determine my own hours. So I block out school holidays. I travel a lot for work, so I'm gone a lot during the term for them. My husband luckily he has a job close by, so he can manage all the drop-offs and pick-ups and everything like that when I'm gone. But I basically commit to them that I will be home for them during the school holidays because of all this time I'm away. But that's a good 3 months a year. That's 12 weeks a year that I can give to them. So as crazy as I get with my travel and my workload during the term, I would probably be away 3 out of 3 nights on average a week during the terms. So when I'm traveling, I'm doing 12, 15-hour days there. It's a lot of delivery. On top of that, I'm writing books all the time and blogs and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it is really about having those holidays. But I think the other things I try and do are, when I'm with the children, it is quality, not quantity. So I'm really trying to be present with them, and I'm trying to be more present with my partner when I'm with him too. We don't always succeed with things like that, but when we're together, we will physically put devices away. We will make eye contact. We will ask each other about our day. We'll have a proper conversation about how we've been feeling and emotions. And I do feel like in those moments we get our fill of connection, and that kind of it strengthens those bonds again, and it makes us feel connected. And that's all I need. As long as I've got that fundamental connection with my family,
love it.
Then I can essentially do anything. So
so important. It's so important, isn't it? And I think in leadership you can get so driven by the demands, and there's 1,000 people who want 1,000 things, and family can come second. Yet if you really nail people down and say, look at your priorities, those relationships are just so important. I love parenting right now because my kids are all in their mid-20s and they left home 3 years ago. It's great.
Oh, I am. Well, I have a mixed emotion to that. I mean, I'm envious and jealous about that because I can imagine how great it will be to have adult relationships with my kids. But I'm also so grateful that they're still young and I can still hug them and put them to bed.
Enjoy it.
I won't need that for much longer.
Last week I put my son on a plane to Edinburgh, so he's going to be cold, I would say, up there. But he's got a dream. He's following the music thing, and he's got a one way ticket and a British passport and a dream. So he's off. Yeah. So I was fine up until he was jumping on the plane. Then I was getting a bit misty.
Yeah,
So
fair enough. I think
it's good there.
you're allowed to shed a few tears under those circumstances.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. But it's having the privilege of still being connected to the family. If you don't invest in your family, then things go wrong. But
Yeah,
it's so important to get right. That is for sure.
it is, and it's the same with teams, right? It really is. Like, are you making eye contact? Are you looking people in the eye? Have you put your phone to the side? Have you made the time for them to be what they need with you? That quality of that connection speaks volumes to how much respect you have and how much love you've got to give. No matter what the circumstances. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
really
like that.
exciting when you've developed that capability in yourself, and the people that you love, they know that you are there for them, and that's what helps them be successful. Much like I can be successful knowing my family are okay. We all need that kind of fundamental foundation.
We do.
Yeah,
Yeah. Honor and respect. I think a lot of leaders try and sort of stay a bit distant. But I found if you build great relationships with people, they're literally crawl across broken glass collectively for the goals that we've set together. But also, I think it's you can still make the tough decisions you have to make from time to time as a leader, hold people accountable, but still have a great relationship. It's not a family; it's different.
yes,
I really don't like when company and leaders talk about the family because it's
I
just not.
agree.
It's just a whole different thing.
100%.
Um,
Yeah,
but that doesn't undermine that need to connect and build relationship with people and genuinely be concerned about them and help them develop and grow and be the best they can be and have great careers and do well. We spend so much time at work. It's such
yeah,
a big chunk of time.
yeah,
You sort of touched a little bit before on diverse teams. I mean, a lot of leaders are really wrestling with the sort of disillusion of the idea of everyone coming to one place and just being a part of a company in one building. So you've got contractors, micro contractors, international,
yeah.
working from home. And yet I just see so many leaders, particularly the top end of town, corporate, going, right, everyone back in the office. And I'm not sure it's the wisest thing, but I seem to be a lone voice at the moment. What do you think?
This is just such an interesting topic, isn't it? It's such a large social experiment that we're all learning from. I think, look, if you want my opinion on it, a mix is important. I think a mix is important. Um, I think teams, people, we need to give flexibility. That's number one. And every individual has their own circumstances, so it's really difficult to put blanket rules on everything because you might need a specific talent, and that talent doesn't live in your city. Are you going to not hire that talent because you've got a policy that everybody has to be in the workplace? You're going to forego, you're going to sort of cut off your nose to spite your face. These are real dilemmas that leaders are facing. But the issue, of course, is that if people don't come into the office, they miss that learning from each other. And that's really important, particularly for the younger generations coming through, because they need to observe and learn from their mentors, the masters of practice that are in the organization. They take so much from that, and they're missing out on all of those behavioral cues
Mm,
if they're not exposed to them. So it's really about maximizing learning as well as flexibility. So, look, every organisation is different, and I think it's really about having a conversation with your own people about what the reasonable expectation and balance might be. And I think that if you are going to step into leadership positions and take on more senior positions and roles, you really need to take on the responsibility of recognizing your presence matters. So you probably do need to recognize that you should expect yourself to go into the office and be there for the people that are learning and show them the ropes and demonstrate and role model what it is to be a leader of that organization. So I don't think that the more experienced you are, the less you need to be around, not necessarily. But again, it depends on your role. If your role is very solo focused, then maybe you are better off being out in the world and interacting with customers, or so look, there's too many individual variables to make blanket statements. But I guess it's another on balance thing, and I think leaders need to ask themselves the questions of where they need to be in order to provide the support and the guidance the organisation and their teams need from them.
yeah, no, I like that. It is. That was a consultant's answer. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. But it does depend. Like it is very organization specific. But I think that people should at least be asking the question. Like the hybrid solution is probably where it's going to land up. I was hoping it might dislocate the company structures a little bit more than perhaps it has. Everyone's sort of wanting to revert back, but I think we can do online well. But you're quite correct. Trying to manage culture and connection and learning and all those water cooler conversations, you just don't get that. So it needs to be thought about. Steph, you're obviously passionate about what you do, getting alongside leaders. I love what you do with YPO too, by the way. YPO, for those of you who don't know, is a leadership organisation. It's about 35,000 people around the world. Average size business is about 200 million US, so top end of town. And Steph and I both help those people connect with each other, and it's just a privilege to sit at the table. I think to be a part of those conversations. So you're seeing a lot of leaders. You're seeing you're connecting with people literally around the world. I don't want to mention this name in polite company, but Trump. So world just changed a lot as far as the environment's concerned, and there's a lot of shifts happening. How do you see leaders needing to respond to a rapidly changing environment, and what some of those ramifications may be?
It's such an interesting question. So I'm not going to get political, but I think this is a really great example of something where I think really great teams, and I'm not the only person who's written about this. The co-founder of Pixar Animations, for some reason his name has escaped me. We're going to have to put it in the notes, but he is a big supporter of really divergent thinkers in organizations. But the problem with that is, how do we cope with differences of opinion? And what's happening right now is there's these, like, everybody's having to pick sides, left or right, up or down, black or white. And that creates, it creates a debate. What happens in debates is we get locked. We get locked in just two potential sides of an argument or two potential ways of looking at a problem. And it shuts down, all the other, ideas and dimensions and ways of thinking about this issue.
Absolutely.
What we actually want is a team that is where there's enough trust and respect that we can respect differences of opinion, as that person's opinion, and to try and prevent ourselves from getting locked in debates. So listen to the one side, listen to the other side, ask everyone else, what's your opinion? And try and contain and hold a space that's big enough for all of those different viewpoints, because it's from the diversity of thinking that a creative solution evolves. So we need to be able to sit for long enough with the tension of not agreeing for something to actually new to emerge. But no one's patient enough for that anymore. We just want to push outside and be right. Congratulations, you won the debate, kudos to you.
And what? Yeah.
So what's
lost that ability. We lost that ability to connect. Yeah.
Yeah. And the ability to connect and listen, I always, so curious is the first word of my new book. Curiosity, how to be curious, connected, and calm. Being curious is about being open to exploring different viewpoints.
That's great.
Holding it for long enough to go, maybe there is a different way of thinking about this. That's how we learn. Computers at the moment are not curious. They are not creative. They basically just they put all the data together and come up with the summary. They are not creative. Humans are creative. This is what we are. That's what sets us apart. We can't be creative if we're not curious. Yeah. So I think what we need to do is just keep the field of possibility open for longer, listen to more voices, and allow the solution to emerge, and keep struggling with it until the thing comes out.
Love it. Can you go into politics? Because that would be helpful. Because at the moment we're just black and white, left and right, red and blue, and nobody talks to each other, and they throw rocks at each other, and it's just not that constructive.
Agree. It's the way the system's set up. Unfortunately, it's always going to be that way. It's the best we've got.
Very polarizing. Yeah.
That's why I like business. I don't like politics. I prefer business.
Very wise. I heard Holly Ransom speak once, and she's great. I love her. Actually, I saw her before she became famous. Actually, we met and had a coffee. She's a legend.
Really.
She talked about the importance of diverse teams, which I agree with. But she was saying that a homogenous team will beat a diverse team unless the diverse team is in a safe environment.
Yeah,
I thought it was very insightful. Like,
that is a really great way of saying
it's
it.
good, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
just the importance of creating that environment where people can share their perspectives, share their experiences, bring their background, and leverage those collective experiences across diversity. Just gives you a 3D view of whatever
yeah,
opportunity or challenge that the team or company might be facing. So
yeah.
it's
I'm a
good.
big supporter of diversity because diversity brings you're more likely to hear different viewpoints. But diversity alone doesn't guarantee diverse thinking. And in
Totally.
fact, you don't need a characteristically diverse team to have diverse thinking. We all have very different experiences and backgrounds, even if we're of the same gender, same skin color, we're still different. So it is about creating an environment where differences are welcomed and that we're not going to get locked in a debate. We're just going
Yeah,
to listen and let the group hash out and think through what the possibilities could be. And that's what creates a high performing environment. It's one where it's not about one person winning or losing, it's about the best idea emerging.
totally.
And that's what creates the performance aspect of it.
Yeah. Someone once said the definition of intelligence is holding two conflicting ideas in your head at the same time and being comfortable with that. I would
Yeah.
say that's a fairly rare skill these days.
Yeah, that was Scott Fitzgerald, actually. Yeah,
Okay,
good
beautiful,
quote. Mm.
excellent. I thought it was me, but obviously it was Scott Fitzgerald.
Hey,
Uh,
it's a brilliant idea. I'm sure it came into your mind as well.
okay, I've got sort of diversified down my sort of passion around politics, and maybe we should learn to play nice and talk to each other. I was going to talk about your passion because you're very passionate about what you do. You do a great job. How did you get into this space? I know you were with Wellness for quite a chunk of time. How did you make this transition, and what drives you?
Yeah, look, I was very lucky because as a young person, I reckon I was maybe 15 when I decided I wanted to be a psychologist. There's a lot of family background behind that. Youngest of four, very, very, very interesting family dynamics that I grew up in. But I knew really young, I care about people and I care about performance. And so I also was very lucky to have an uncle who was a psychologist. And when I was making decisions about subjects in year 11 and 12, I went and saw him and he took me through a whole raft of tests and he was like, actually you make a really great psychologist based on the results. So phew, I'm on the right path. But he asked me a really great question, which was, do you want to work with people who are unwell and help them find a level of operation, or do you want to work with people who are well and help them find flourishing? And I knew straight away I wanted the latter. So I went into psychology knowing I wanted to work in organizational psychology, knowing I wanted to work in some form of consulting, talking about leadership and culture and change and growth. And so I was very lucky to kind of be really clear on my journey and had a good 10 years working at Nous Group, which was it is still a
Yeah,
fantastic management consulting company in Australia.
absolutely.
The most amazing culture, the most amazing leadership in that organization. It continues to be now. So I learned a lot from brilliant people there, and then I was never going to leave Nous, but went into Swiss Wellness when I found another organisation that was similarly values based and purpose based. So this was when Swiss was a privately owned organisation. It was led by Radek Sali, who is now an investor and an entrepreneur, himself. He continues to do great things. He has Light Warrior Investment Group, so he invests in things that do good in the world. But Swiss was the kind of place where I actually got to see how culture, leadership, and strategy can come together. They went through a tough moment when I joined, and it was. They were about to potentially go into voluntary administration. They were so close to that point. They had invested in a big moonshot in the US, which didn't work out for various reasons. You can pick up how to build $1 billion business by Radek Sali if you want to read this story. Um, But it was really interesting because what we decided when I came in, that we said let's go away and let's recut our strategy. And so really that was where I got to put into practice everything I'd learned as a consultant, and hold and contain this organization and this leadership team through a 2-year turnaround period. And they ended up selling for $1 billion record sale at the time. It was a $1.7 billion sale. So for a little privately owned company that had become Australia's number one and then sold for this record sale from, almost closing its doors 2 years prior was incredible. It was the most incredible turnaround I've seen and experienced since then. But the three things we got really clear on was what is our strategy, and let's get it on a page, the one-page plan, and really communicate that and make sure everybody's empowered to deliver that. It was holding those leaders, those executive leaders, to account on their behaviours. So they had 360-degree feedback. We went through a lot of coaching to help them move into that more lived values, supporting, encouraging, empowering style, and that helped transform the business. And probably the third thing was having a culture plan. So actually really looking after, doing everything we could to make sure employees were really cared for and nurtured and supported. We definitely, we had to, hold people to account. We had to performance manage. We had to let go of a number of people who were being passengers and not really on board with it. So we had to make some really tough calls. But for the people that were there that cared, they made the difference. And so, a little bit of luck in the market, good timing on some products that were really kind of exciting to the Chinese market. It really just blew that brand up, and it got it at a point where it was ready for a sale. So fantastic. That experience gave me everything that I needed to kind of go, okay, now I know what my purpose is in this world. I know that there's a fundamental set of practices that enables and supports companies and cultures to be successful, and it really is all about the people. And so that's what I've tried to kind of get down into my books and put into my programs and continue to talk to people about.
So good. I think it's a great example. Clear vision, great values, simple strategic plan. And I think, when you talked about people leaving, I think if you create the right culture and you get very, very clear and transparent, people self-select, or the ones that don't want to play, that becomes very quickly apparent to everyone. Yeah. And then, you have to help them find somewhere else to be, because they're obviously not going to fit where they are, and not easy to do well, but I think it's part of the game. That's a great story. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Steph, if we have a lot of business leaders obviously listen to the program, so if people want to connect with you, if they resonated with what you've said, I do. I think it's awesome. How do they connect with you? What's the best way for them to do that?
Look, the best way is my website. So it's just stephaniebown.com, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. So I'm pretty proactive on LinkedIn as well. And look, it's all there. My contact details, my programs, my talks. If you want to buy the book, you can get the links through to the online websites to buy the book. If you want a signed copy, just email me. I will get you one. I'm very happy to do that. If you just want to have a chat with me, reach out to me via email, stephanie@stephaniebown.com. I'm willing to just take any calls, speak to people, share the knowledge, share the resources. And then if you actually want to, go down the route of a program, then, we'll have a talk about that.
Yeah, I love it. Like if you're a leader and you want to be successful, read Stephanie's book. I guarantee you'll get something out of that. That'll help you on your journey. Steph, you and I and a couple of others are doing a program coming up for YPO.
Yeah.
Got Australia, New Zealand, all the best moderators from around the region, and we're going to make them into master moderators. So super looking forward to collaborating with you on that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I was excited to get you on because I really resonate with where you're at, and you and I are sort of preaching from the same pulpit on how to do leadership. So thank you so much for joining us today. All those links will be in the description so people can connect with you, and I'd encourage them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Mark. It's really been a great conversation.
Thanks for joining us at the Lead Well, Live Well vodcast. Please like, subscribe, and share. If you want to know more about what we're all about, you can find us at leadwelllivewell.com.au.